This is the standard. This is Stretford. Welcome back to the wheel.
Welcome back to the bunker. Last week, we liquidated the ego of North London. This week, we are faced with a much more dangerous opponent. The tactical, sleep-aid West Ham are coming to Old Trafford. But this isn't the West Ham of old. Gone is the Jamba Juice flair of Lucas Paquetá and Mohamed Kudus. Variables that were as fun as they were structurally insolvent. We are now in the era of Nuno Espírito Santo, which means we aren't just playing a football team, we're playing a 90-minute game of stop the bus. Nuno has traded chaos for pragmatism, and by pragmatism I mean he's turned West Ham into a structural monolith. That's about as exciting as reading the terms and conditions of a software update. Let's be real, no one gives a shit. They don't want the ball, they don't want the space. They want to board our standard filter into a state of impatience entropy. They're betting that Carrick's 325 will get so tired of passing sideways that we'll commit a low ROI error just to feel alive again. It's a bold strategy, Nuno, trying to outlogic a system designed by the most clinical minds in the country right now. But here's the problem with the bus. It only works if you don't have a leak. And looking at this 2026 West Ham roster, I don't see a wall. I see a collection of parts waiting to be dismantled by the pathogen. Get your coffee ready. This isn't a game, it's a siege. And by the end of this blueprint, you will see exactly how we're going to turn Nuno's pragmatic masterclass into a forensic study of failure. The standard is being upheld. Try to keep up. Okay, let's talk about the new West Ham. If 2024 was a fever dream of Brazilian flair, 2026 is a cold, hard recovery ward. Nuno has rebalanced the squad, which is tactical speak for we sold the magicians and bought a bunch of bricklayers. But don't get arrogant. Even a bricklayer can build a wall that's hard to knock down. Nuno has abandoned the chaos and installed a 4-4-2-5-4-1 hybrid that is actually starting to return a profit. They've won 3 of their last 4, and they did it by finding a new logic center, Matheus Fernandes. This kid is the only thing keeping the lights on in East London. He is doing 2 people's jobs because Thomas Soucek's technical ability is currently hovering somewhere near Sunday League. Fernandes is the lone progressor, the tackler, and the vision. In our 3-2-5 filter, Matheus Fernandes is what we call the target variable. If we isolate him, West Ham's entire transition engine stalls. Without him, they're just 11 guys in claret and blue standing in a line, waiting for the inevitable. Nuno's architecture is simple. Absorb the pressure, wait for the standard to over-rotate, and then release the pathogens, Somerville and Bowen. They aren't looking to outplay us, they're looking to outweight us. It's a low-block monolith designed to induce frustration. But a wall is only as strong as its weakest brick. And with Jean-Claire Todibo suspended, Nuno has been forced to plug the hole with Axel Disasi, a man whose error ROI at Chelsea was so high, it practically crashed their servers. Let's look at the leak. Now let's look at the internal leak in Nuno's vault. Jean-Claire Todibo, the man who actually knows how to defend, is still serving his 3-match sentence for that red card against Chelsea. This has opened the door for Axel Disasi, a January loan signing who has spent the last year at Chelsea being less of a defender and more of a social experiment in chaos theory. To be fair, Disasi looked solid against Burnley, but Burnley isn't the standard. Burnley is a low ROI stress test, at best. Our 3-5 filter isn't going to let him complete 97% of his passes while sipping tea. We're going to force him to make decisions under high frequency duress. Disasi's logic lag is well documented. He's great when the game is static, but the second the 3-2-5 starts lateralizing, playing those diagonal passes, moving the ball from Licha to Dallo to Bruno, His positioning begins to dissolve. Nuno is praying Mavropanos can babysit him, but our plan is to isolate Disasi 1v1 against Brian and Mo. We are targeting the lack of structural chemistry in a backline that has only played together for 90 minutes. While Nuno tries to coach communication from the sidelines, we'll be using Mbomo's diagonal runs to turn Disasi's debut into a forensic study of processing overload. If Todibo is the shield, Disasi is the paper bag. We don't just want to beat him, we want to liquidate his confidence before the first half is over. Now, while we're busy drilling holes in their defense, we have to make sure we don't let the only two pathogens infect our system. Let's talk about the Somerville Bowen problem. And let's be honest, Nuno's West Ham is effectively a Jared Bowen delivery system. Now that the Brazilian flair has been liquidated, they have leaned into the only thing they have left: raw, unadulterated transition speed. Without a creative logic center, their entire game plan is to hope we get bored, lose the ball in the danger ROI zone, and let Somerville and Bowen turn our high line into a 100-meter sprint. They aren't looking to build an attack, they're looking to commit a hit and run. Somerville is a high frequency pathogen. He doesn't care about your structure, he just wants to find a 1v1 against Diego Dallo when he's tucked inside as an inverted wingback. If we over-rotate our 3-5 filter, we leave the lateral flanks exposed. That is the only coordinate where West Ham can actually find a return on their investment. Bowen is the clinical finisher, but Somerville is the carrier. If we don't quarantine him early, he will infect the entire backline with recovery panic. This is where Lisandro Martinez, our butcher, becomes our structural firewall. We don't defend Bowen by running with him, we defend him by cutting off the supply chain from Mateus Fernandes. We maintain the high line not because we're arrogant, but because we want to compress the space so much that Somerville doesn't have a runway. He only has a brick wall. We aren't going to let this turn into a track meet. We are going to keep it a chess match. And in chess, a pawn doesn't outrun a queen. So, how do you break a vault that's been designed by a man who treats fun like a structural defect? You don't use a sledgehammer. You use lateral exhaustion. Nuno's 4-4-2 relies on displacement discipline. They move as a unit. If we attack centrally, we're playing right into their hands. It's like trying to punch a mountain. Instead, we're going to use Amad Diallo and Mateus Cunha to create gravity wells on the edges of the box. Now look at the half spaces. By pinning their fullbacks to the touchline, we force Axel Disasi and Mavropanos to cover more horizontal ground than they are biologically capable of managing. We aren't looking for the killer pass in the 10th minute, we are looking for the tiring pass. We lateralize. Back to Lecha, across to Dallo, out to Ahmad, back to Menu. We do this until Nuno's pragmatic wall starts to show cracks. By the 60th minute, their midfielders, especially the aging Thomas Soucek, will have covered so much lateral distance their ROI will be in the negatives. This is the filter at work. We are scrubbing away their stamina, their discipline, and their hope. We are waiting for that one moment where Disasi loses his logic alignment and steps 2 yards too far to the left. And that is exactly when we stop being a filter and start being a mutation. It's the 65th minute. Nuno's vault is still standing, but the hinges are screaming. The lateral exhaustion phase has done its job. Thomas Soucek is moving like he's wading through dry cement. And Axel Disasi is starting to look at the bench with the eyes of a man who wants to be anywhere else but on the field. Now we release the mutation. Carrick doesn't just make us up, he changes the fundamental physics of the game. Like we witnessed with the last game, we shift from the 3-5 filter into the 4-2-2 Riot. We stop trying to outpass them and start trying to outmuscle them. Exit Cunha, Enter Benjamin Šeško. This is the execution phase. Šeško doesn't care about Nuno's low block. He just sees a collection of tired defenders who are suddenly 6 inches shorter than him. By putting Šeško and Mbeumo directly on the shoulders of the centre backs, we force West Ham into a binary crisis. Do they stay deep and let Bruno Fernandes have the edge of the box? Or do they try to step up and get liquidated by a 6'5" Slovenian who runs like a gazelle? There is no correct answer. There is only the inevitable conclusion. My prediction? Logic dictates a 3-0 liquidation. We find the first leak late in the first half through Mbeumo's diagonal ROI. Bruno adds a second from the gravity well once their midfield gasses, and Šeško, he'll provide the third just to remind Nuno that pragmatism is no match for a high output mutation. West Ham are coming for a point, they're leaving with a headache and a lesson in structural integrity. The standard is the standard. Stay logical, and for the love of the game, try to keep up.